So this next text pair, the common theme between the two has to deal with humanity, human relationships with robots, and how we grapple with our relationship, creator created, to those sorts of entities. And you are reading one of the most iconic American authors, especially in the genres of science fiction and fantasy, and that is Ray Bradbury, as well as Brian Aldiss with Super Toys Last All Summer. So Ray Bradbury is writing in this post-war era, alongside Isaac Asimov, and he's very prolific. And Ray Bradbury wrote a lot of stories about technology for all of the reasons that we talked about in the last set. However, Ray Bradbury really has an interesting relationship with technology. In a lot of these stories, technology is dangerous, or technology is sort of this eerie or threatening thing. However, what you're looking at in these two stories, I think, or one of the things that we can think about in these two stories is that AI, or the robot, isn't really the scary part. The scary part is the humans inside of that, and how they interact or navigate those things. So many people thought that Ray Bradbury in his life, and still do today, was very anti-technology. I mean, he refused to learn how to drive. He was a very eccentric guy, in a lot of cool ways, but also in a lot of, very obvious ways. However, I want to read you, in Ray Bradbury's own words, his feelings about robots and technology. So in 1974, somebody had written to him about whether he was scared of, or why he hated robots, why he was scared of robots. And Ray Bradbury responded, this letter is public now. Disney was coming out with like animatronics, and he talks a bit about that. But then he gets to this point about this idea that he is fearful of robots, and he says, any machine, any robot is the sum total of the ways we use it. They are extensions of people, not people themselves. And he goes on to sort of talk about the relationship between how anything can be sort of weaponized, and it's the human cause that's very fearful. And here is the section that I think is particularly poignant. I am not afraid of robots. I am afraid of people. I want them to remain human. I can help keep them human with the wise and lovely use of books, films, robots, and my own mind, hands, and heart. I am afraid of Catholics killing Protestants and vice versa. I am afraid of whites killing blacks and vice versa. I am afraid of English killing Irish and vice versa. I am afraid of young killing old and vice versa. I am afraid of communists killing capitalists and vice versa. But robots, God, I love them. I will use them humanely to teach all of the above. My voice will speak out of them, and it will be a damned nice voice. So not only is that just, chef's kiss articulation from Ray Bradbury, but really gets at the heart of what a lot of, maybe a misconception, but what is the source of conflict in science fiction about robots and AI, which is not the robot or the AI itself. It is how we as humans respond to it, or what it does to us to live in that world, and what we use it for is something that Ray Bradbury is very concerned with as well. Now, going back to the idea of the creator and the created, as the line between artificial intelligence and human intelligence becomes thinner and thinner, our identity as humans becomes trickier and trickier to define. What is it that makes us human? Well, for a long period of time, it was, there's the biological aspect, which relates back to mortality, that we talked about in your previous story set. But now, and it was approaching during this period of time too, we're getting to a point to where some of the things that we think distinguishes us are becoming kind of blurry, right? What is intelligence? What is empathy? What is cognition? Those sorts of things, the difference between the artificial and human version is something that we're certainly grappling with as a society today. And one of the, sort of future fears, if you will, about robots and technology is that it will become conscious, meaning it will become autonomous and sentient and be able to think in the way, in that sort of impossible to quantify way that humans can. And the fear there is, how would we ever know that? Right? How do I know that other humans are conscious because they're humans? But if robots ever make that jump, or intelligence ever makes that jump, the unknown there is very fearful. So our relationship to it, and the idea that maybe something we care about or something we love could be not what we thought it was, or that we could be fooled by these sorts of things. There's a premise in pop culture known as Uncanny Valley, and this is the idea that the less like a human something looks, like in cartoons or animation, if it looks very much not like a human, then we're fine with it. But the closer and closer and closer it gets to looking like a human, some people start to feel real uneasy about that. Starts to sort of weird people out. And that's because, of the difficulty grappling with what separates us from what is and what isn't, right? So if you look at, some of the AI technology that's out there today, the most advanced AI android, Ameca, is created in a very robotic sort of looking way, but has very almost human-like facial features or manners of responding. And some people get very comfortable with that. I think another great example, for me personally, is AI voiceover. So you can use AI voices to do a number of different things, and I'll talk about that, when it becomes useful to your coursework. But it is alarming how voices can be duplicated in an almost indistinguishable sort of way, right? And again, it's just the context of those things getting closer and closer together, and the idea that we could be fooled by something. Because remember, once it reaches consciousness, how could we ever know? And if it can fool us into thinking it's human, well, then there are a whole other set of fears that come along with it. In addition to Marionettes Inc., you're also reading Super Toys Last All Summer. That one was published in 1969, sort of towards the end of the post-war era, but dealing with a lot of these same premises that we've been talking about so far. This one also became the basis for the film Artificial Intelligence that Spielberg directed in the 90s. And that's just relevant to know when you get to your feature film comparison that this is one of the stories that there is a feature-length film. And in service of Brian Aldiss' Super Toys Last All Summer, one thing that I will give you that I want you to think about or sort of sit with, particularly as you reach the end of that story, is the amount of sympathy that you have or don't have for David. In Frankenstein, how we feel sympathy towards this created monster is something that's interesting to think about. For example, personally, as a reader, I am incredibly sympathetic to Frankenstein, and honestly, Victor Frankenstein is probably one of my most hated characters in literature. I find him insufferable, but that's just a personal thing. But how much sympathy we can feel towards the intelligent non-human, towards the created monster, that is also something that we grapple with in science fiction. You'll see it in both of these stories, but particularly in Super Toys Last All Summer, I want you to think about how much sympathy you feel for David and whether that's influenced by what he is. That'll help set you up for our next set of texts that unpack empathy and humanity in a whole different light.